The designers behind Volvo's XC70 were the first to realise that a large all-wheel drive estate car with a modicum of off-road ability and SUV styling cues could tempt buyers who couldn't quite stomach the thought of a fully fledged 4x4. In this much improved second generation guise, it offers an efficient Drive-E D4 diesel engine for owners happy to stick with two-wheel drive, and across the range continues to offer either a stepping stone or an alternative to SUV ownership.
Not everyone wants an SUV, but quite a few people like that kind of vehicle's lifestyle image, rugged look and spacious practicality. These are customers that Volvo has long targeted with this car, the second generation XC70. Now you think of Volvo as being masters of the Scandinavian winter, but in fact it took them until 2002 to bring us an SUV. 3 years before their XC90 arrived though, the Swedes were dipping their toes into 4x4 territory with all-wheel drive versions of their large V70 estate. You could have the basic car with 4-driven wheels, but for really rutted farm tracks, something a little more sophisticated was required with greater ride height. First badged the XC, then the Cross Country, the resulting design became a fully fledged model in its own right when relaunched as the XC70 in 2002. We're looking here at an improved version of the second generation XC70 model range, launched back in 2007 to further target the growing market for spacious estate cars with rugged looks and a modicum of off-road ability. Cars aimed at buyers who secretly crave an SUV but don't want to be seen in one. In 2013, this model got a mild facelift, but the really significant change came a year later with the introduction of Volvo's first homegrown engine, the 2-litre D4 Drive-E diesel unit. That created a package we'll be driving here and revitalised a range I'll be guiding you through. With a high centre of gravity and near 2.4 tonnes of gross weight, the XC70 was never going to be the ultimate driver's car. But you could argue that it's close to being the ultimate driver's compromise. Unless the optional 4C active suspension system has, rather unwisely, encouraged you to throw the thing around, you'll find it pretty much like a standard V70 to drive day to day, complete with slightly vague steering and ride quality that's better at higher speeds than it is around town. Yet venture onto the dirt and you'll probably find that it will do 90% of what most SUV owners require. You shouldn't read too much into that, as in general these requirements don't tend to be too onerous. Still, a raised 210mm ride height that sees this car sitting 59mm higher than a standard V70, and to suit the seasons, an appropriate set of winter tyres, should both help your XC70 deal with muddy car parks and snowy snaps in its stride. The stats certainly look good. There's an approach angle of 19 degrees, a departure angle of 23 degrees and a breakover angle of 19 degrees. All these figures significantly better than the car you'd think might be a benchmark model in this class, Audi's much pricier A6 Allroad. All this does not a Land Rover make, but Volvo have at least borrowed the concept of the clever hill descent control system originally developed by the Solihull company, which uses the ABS to ease the car down extra steep, slimy slopes, keeping 10 miles an hour as a maximum. So far so good then, but you might notice that I've got this far without mentioning the feature that you might expect to define this car: all-wheel drive. That's because the entry-level D4 Drive-E 2-litre diesel version I'm driving here doesn't have it. So in choosing this base XC70 variant, you're essentially paying quite a lot over the cost of the brand's standard V70 model for plastic body cladding and an increased ride height. Every other XC70 model in the lineup does feature all-wheel drive, but that Drive-E power plant I just mentioned isn't fitted to any of these variants because in its initial guise, almost unforgivably, it wasn't engineered to work with a 4x4 drive layout. In this case, a sophisticated Haldex setup using an electronically controlled hydraulic clutch to distribute drive to whichever wheels can best handle it. The Drive E unit's absence across the majority of the XC70 range is a huge pity, as this 181 brake horsepower new generation engine is, in almost every other respect, the ideal power plant for this car. 62 miles an hour from rest occupies just 8.8 seconds en route to 130 miles an hour, and there's a potent 400 newton meters of torque, so it's virtually as fast and responsive as the priciest diesel in the lineup, the most powerful 215 brake horsepower 2.4 litre D5 XC70 variant. Yet it's significantly more frugal and economic. What I'm saying then is that if you can justify buying this Volvo without all-wheel drive, then the 2-litre two-wheel drive D4 diesel package works very well. Many potential XC70 customers, though, will see drive to four wheels as being a non-negotiable, and for them there are three further engine choices in the lineup that can be matched to all-wheel drive. The old 2.4-litre Ford-derived diesel continues on just for 4x4 customers in 181 brake horsepower guise, where, rather confusingly, it's also badged D4. And in 215 brake horsepower guise, where it's badged D5. Thus powered, an XC70 D4 all-wheel drive model makes 62 miles an hour from rest in 9.2 seconds, en route to 127 miles an hour, while an XC70 D5 all-wheel drive variant trims those figures back to 8 seconds and 130 miles an hour, doing so with a rather delicious snarl as you accelerate through the gears. The only other option is the minority interest 304 brake horsepower petrol T6 all-wheel drive flagship version, which manages 62 miles an hour in 6.9 seconds on the way to 130 miles an hour. The XC70's rugged SUV styling cues are just enough to set it apart from its more restrained V70 model stablemate. As well as the scratch-proof protective cladding along the car's flanks and arches, there are chunky front bumpers and chromed door scuff plates. XC embossed roof rails are a standard fitment, and purposeful silver front and rear skid plates leave onlookers in no doubt as to this car's dual-purpose role. Otherwise, the practical square-back silhouette that we expect any big Volvo estate to offer remains, with its bluff vertical tailgate. Look a little closer though, and the careful details please, like the way that the climbing waistline creates a forward-leaning dynamic stance that's further reinforced with the help of the black pillars between these side windows. As for the most recent aesthetic changes, well, you'll really have to know your XC70s to appreciate them. Owners of earlier second-generation models may notice the smarter front grille with its larger brand badge, the daytime running lights and the added matte silver touches that aim to give the car a more upmarket and luxurious feel. At the rear, there's a completely redesigned bumper along with smarter tail lights. Overall, though, Volvo hasn't been diverted from this car's raison d'etre, lugging gear. Raise the optionally powered tailgate and a 575-litre boot is revealed. Now true, that may not be as much as you get from, say, estate versions of the Volkswagen Passat Alltrack or the Skoda Superb Outdoor, but there's still quite as much room here as any normal family, equestrian rider or antique dealer will ever need. Let me put Volvo's case over in practical terms. There's room enough here for a washing machine with all its packaging, or, according to the Swedish brand, 5 large suitcases plus an extra medium one and 2 rucksacks. If you're going to be carrying heavy items regularly, tick the box for the load-compensating suspension option. Just as important is the way you can use all that space. I especially like this shallow hinged compartment on top of the boot floor. Lift up the flap and you can mess up that floor with muddy stuff. Then when you remove your wellies or whatever, the flap goes down again and you don't have to worry about cleaning the cargo area carpet. Well, not immediately anyway. Out of sight, out of mind and all that. You can also specify a reversible waterproof mat to cover the entire base of the luggage area. But if you put it down, then you won't be able to use the aluminium rails and movable anchoring points that are featured on a cargo area floor that, to save your back, can also be specified in sliding form to get heavy items in and out more easily. Practical touches include an optional dog guard and a handy flip-up load divider to restrain smaller objects. Plus, you'll also find luggage nets and hooks to help secure any items with wayward tendencies. There's a 40-20-40 split in the rear bench, so that long items like skis can easily be poked through, one of no fewer than 16 different loading combinations. And if you completely flatten the rear bench, a process that, as an option, can be electrically powered, then up to 1,600 litres of space is freed up if you stack to the roof. If that still isn't enough, then there's a fold-forward front passenger seat so that you can take longer items like kayaks and surfboards. So, it's good for packages, but what about for people? Well, take a seat in the rear and you'll find that 3 fully sized adults will just about fit comfortably, enjoying decent standards of leg, head and knee room, as well as these neat vents in the B-pillars. For parents like me, there's also the useful option of 2 integrated child booster cushions, one on each side of the rear seat, which can be set at 2 different heights, thereby accommodating a wide range of child weights and ages. If you've money left in the budget and are particularly keen on keeping the little ones quiet on longer trips, you might also want to tick the box for the rear screen entertainment system with its twin 8-inch rear screens and DVD player. Up front, you'll find a cabin built to withstand a lifetime of hard use. With smart and durable fixtures and fittings, it isn't only the engines that are rugged. At the wheel, you don't get the high driving position that Volvo XC60 and XC90 owners love, but with multiple adjustment possibilities for both seat and steering wheel, it's easy to find the perfect driving position, and the seats are amongst the most comfortable you'll come across. In terms of aesthetics, this is an example of Scandinavian design at its very best, with this trademark super slim floating centre console, simple instruments and switchgear ergonomics that are a match for anything from Audi or Mercedes. The idea is that, like IKEA furniture, this cabin should be typically Swedish, comfortable, simple, intuitive and visually pleasing. And broadly it is, now thanks to a subtle redesign which has introduced smarter materials and silk metal frames around the air vents and light controls, plus a redesigned gear knob and lovely touches like this frameless rearview mirror. My only gripe is with the rather fiddly electronic handbrake. One of the nicest touches that's worth shelling out a little extra for is the high-tech TFT instrument display. With the flick of a switch, you can choose between 3 different dial layouts. An amber backlit elegance setting for comfort-orientated day-to-day motoring, a green backlit eco setting to help you drive more economically, and a red backlit performance mode to better suit for more spirited driving. That'll be new to buyers who may have owned an early version of this second-generation model, as will be the clever Sensus Connect infotainment system with its 7-inch colour screen. As a driver, you've the choice of going online either via a car-mounted 3G, 4G dongle or by using your own mobile phone. High-tech features include a voice activation system that works on all music sources and the industry's first in-dash fully integrated voice search Spotify application. It's also possible to share a Wi-Fi network with everyone in the car.